Today we are going to look at the second method for graphing quadratic functions, and that is graphing in what we call vertex form. So this equation right here is vertex form. We've seen similar to this when we talked about the V-graphs. This has a lot of the same rules that we talked about when we studied the graphs that made V's. So let's talk about what each of these three important letters, A, H, and K, stand for. A is what we refer to as the slope. Now this is the exact same rule that we learned the previous class. It is how much you rise, and then you will always run one left and one right. Okay, so again, the A, whether it's a whole number or a fraction, is automatically what you go up or down, and you will always go left and right one. H, this is a shifting number. So H moves the graph horizontally, left and right, and we've seen this before. When H is positive, it goes left. When H is negative, it goes right. Again, it's the opposite of what you would think. K, this moves the graph vertically or up and down. If it's positive, it moves the graph up. If it's negative, it moves the graph down. These two last boxes, H and K, these are the exact rules that we learned when we learned the V-graphs. The only difference is the slope, and it's because it's always over 1. Now, a couple of important pieces, and we've talked about one of these. We are already familiar with the vertex. The vertex is always that very top or very bottom of the parabola, and it will always be the point H, the opposite of this one, and K. So do the opposite of this guy, keep this guy the same. That is your vertex, or you can also call this your starting point. Now, the other important piece of information that we're going to talk about is what's called the axis of symmetry. Now, you've heard the word symmetry before. Symmetry is when something is the same on both sides. So the axis of symmetry is simply the line that splits the parabola evenly on both sides. It will always be x equals h. It will always be the value right here from the vertex, x equals that number. And so when we graph, we're going to state the vertex, we're going to state the axis of symmetry, and we're also going to state the slope and put those things together on our graph. So let's take a look at our first example. So we have y equals 1/2 times x plus 2 squared minus 5. So the first thing we want to list is the vertex. So as I just got through saying on the previous slide, we do the opposite of this number, and we keep this number the same. Well, the opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2, and negative 5 stays the same. That's going to be your starting point. The axis of symmetry is always x equals the h, or the first number here. So it is automatically x equals negative 2. We slide that x value down there. And then the other thing we need is our slope. Well, our slope is this a value, but remember, that's how much we go up or down. We automatically go left and right 1. So the denominator is automatically 1. Let's put this to work on a graph. Now it's exactly like how we graphed last class. We're going to start with the vertex. We're going to go left 2 and down 5. Left 2, down 5. That's your vertex. Then, using our slope, we're going to go up half a box, because it's positive, and then left and right 1. So up half a box and right 1. Then go back to the vertex and go up half a box and left 1. So because this is a fraction, this should be a nice wide parabola. And we are done. These take up much less algebra to graph. Let's look at one more together, then you'll try a couple on your own. So let's start with the vertex. So we need the opposite of this one. Keep that one the same. So the opposite of -3 is +3. And keep 4 the same. Our axis of symmetry is always x equals the first number. Our slope is our a value, which is -2, and it's always over 1. So we need to graph our vertex. Right 3, up 4. So right 1, 2, 3, up 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your vertex. Our slope, we're going to go down 2 because it's negative, and left and right 1. So down 2 and to the right 1. Go back to our vertex and go down 2 and to the left 1. And so this is a skinny parabola. So hopefully that you're thinking, oh, well, those are pretty easy. So pause the video, try both of these, and we will see how you do. All right, so let's check out how you did here. So the first thing we need is the vertex. So we need the opposite of this one, and keep that number the same. Well, the opposite of -1 is a +1. There's no number here. Well, if there's no number there, it's a 0. It just means that we don't move up or down. Your axis of symmetry, you should have told me, was x equals +1. And your slope, you should have told me, was +3 automatically over 1. So let's see how you did on the graph now. So you go right 1, up and down nothing. So just go to the right 1 and stay put. And then from there, we're going to go, because this is positive, we're going to go up 3 and left and right 1. So up 3 to the right 1. Go back to the vertex and go up 3 and to the left 1. And this parabola is even skinnier than the last one we just drew. So hopefully you got that one right. Now B is kind of the oddball, because if you notice, the one thing it doesn't have is parentheses. If it doesn't have parentheses, then that means that it doesn't have an H. It can have a K, but it doesn't have an H if it doesn't have parentheses. So let's see how you did on this one. The vertex, well, since there's no parentheses, the first number is 0 because there's no H. The second number we always keep the same, so I'm going to make that a +6. The axis of symmetry is x equals 0. The slope is -1/4. But remember, then we automatically put that over 1. Okay, that's the biggest mistake I see, is when they're fractions. So if I want to graph this, I'm going to start with my vertex, so I don't move left or right, and I simply go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then my slope, I'm going to go down 1/4 of a box, and then right and left 1. So down 1/4, right 1. Go back to the vertex, down 1/4, and left 1. And so this one is very wide because of how flat that opening part is. So hopefully you're thinking, oh, those are pretty easy to graph. So the second half of this lesson, we're going to work backwards. I'm going to give you a picture, and we're going to go step by step to fill in all of this very important information. So let's start with our vertex. Well, as we already know, our vertex is always this middle point in the bottom. Well, let's count. We had to go left 2, so that means it's -2. And then we had to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Since it's down, it's also a negative. So it's -9. Now the slope. Okay, this is the important part. The slope is how much you went up or down exactly 1 right and 1 left. So if I go 1 right and up to my graph, there's my dot. If I go 1 left and up to my graph, there's my dot. Well, how much up is that? Well, that is up exactly 1 box. So I went up 1 box and then left and right 1. So the slope is always just the amount you're going up or down, exactly 1 to the left and 1 to the right. So what we have here is the information we need to write vertex form. Okay, as we know, vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Well, the slope, if you remember, is your a value. This number is your h value, but we got to remember we always do the opposite. And this number is your k value, but we keep it the same. So our equation looks like y equals 1 parentheses x. Now if this is a -2, the opposite of a -2 is a +2 squared. And if we keep this one the same, then it is a -9. So we just literally went exactly backwards from what we did on the first few examples. Now the second half of this kind of mixes in your ideas from last class. Now zeros, this is an important vocab word. Zeros are another name for x-intercepts. And as you should hopefully already know, x-intercepts are the points where the graph touches the x-axis. This guy right here. This is the x-axis. So as you can see, it touches the x-axis right there and again right there. Well, what are those numbers? Well, this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left, so it's -5. And we have a second one. This one is from 0, 1 to the right, so we have a +1. Now, factored form is something that's new to us, but we need factored form in order to get standard form. So let me show you what factored form looks like. It looks like y equals a times x minus your first 0 times x minus your second 0. So we know what a is. Okay, the a value from up here is the same a value down here. Then your zeros go there and there. So it looks like y equals 1 times x. Now, this right here is the same as this up here. It's the opposite. So the opposite of -5 is +5. And the opposite of +1 is -1. Now that is factored form. If you can take the zeros and do the opposites, you can write factored form. Standard form is simply multiplying all of this out. And we've done this before. So I'm going to keep the 1 right there. I'm going to take x times x, and I get x squared. I'm going to take x times negative 1, and I'm going to get negative 1x. I'm going to take 5 times x and get positive 5x, and 5 times negative 1 and get negative 5. Now notice it's still in parentheses because this 1 needs to now be distributed to everything. Well, 1 times x squared is 1x squared. 1 times negative 1x is negative 1x. 1 times 5x is 5x. And 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. And the last thing you need to do for standard form, which is what we worked with last class, is combine these two middle terms. They are like terms. So we keep the 1x squared. Negative 1x plus 5x is positive 4x. And we bring down the negative 5. And that is standard form. So again, the vertex is here. The slope is here. Vertex form is right there. The zeros are those two numbers. Factored form is here in purple. And standard form is down here at the end. So, go ahead and pause your video. I would like you to try this last example on your own, and then we'll see how you did afterwards. Okay, so let's see how well we did. So, of course, the vertex is the very tippy top point. So that is from here, write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So write 5 as a positive 5. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a positive 8. Now, the slope is the tricky part. I need to go one box to the right and go down to where it hits the graph. Well, it hits the graph right there. Go one box left and go down until it hits the graph. Well, it hits the graph right there. Here, I'll make those in red so they're easier to see. Well, how many boxes is it from this point down to those points? And notice I said down. It's down one box, 2 boxes. So since I had to go down 2 boxes before I hit the graph, my slope is -2. So, vertex form, let's see how you did. We know it starts off with y equals your a value. So this is a, parentheses, x. This number we do the opposite. So the opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. Don't forget the squared. And we keep this number the same. So plus 8. So hopefully you got that one right. Not too bad. The zeros. We need where it crosses the x-axis. So that would be that point and that point. So this first one is 1, 2, 3 to the right, so positive 3. The second one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to the right, so positive 7. So factored form, now we keep our a value here, and our a value again is -2. Then we have x, and the opposite of 3 is -3. And x, the opposite of 7 is -7. So hopefully you got that right. And then finally, we have to do all of our distributing. So I'm going to keep the -2, and I'm going to take x times x is x squared. X times -7 is -7x. -3 times x is -3x. And -3 times -7 is a positive 21. And then finally, to find the answer, we're going to multiply by -2. So -2 times x squared is -2x squared. -2 times -7x is positive 14x. Negative 2 times negative 3x is positive 6x. And negative 2 times positive 21 is negative 42. Final answer, keep the negative 2x squared. What is 14x's plus 6x's? Well, that is 20x's. And keep the negative 42. And that is your standard form. So we are done with this lesson, and I will see you in class.